Welcome to Multifamily Grit, where we bring in the experts to share the pros and cons and celebrations and struggles of one of the most important industries in the U.S., multifamily property management. I am joined today by Katherine Maestas, Community Manager at Kairoi, an incredible owner and operator managing over 30,000 units today. Katherine came to my attention through her incredible LinkedIn activity, discussing creating success, living an incredible life, being a mother, and mastering leasing sales. And there's no question here, after listening to Katherine for just a few minutes, you'll realize why we are intrigued. And before we get started, we are sponsored today by the only core property management operating system built with an emphasis for affordable owners and operators. Fortress revolutionizes affordable management by reducing applicant processing time to help you save money, generate cash, and drive your teams to success. Don't forget, if you like what you hear today, please like, subscribe, and share with someone you think would enjoy this episode. So, Katherine, thank you so much for being here with me today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
And before we get started, I'd love for you to share with our listeners how you got your start in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So multifamily is definitely not something that was ever on my radar. Truthfully, I didn't even know what it was. I had worked in the fitness industry for 2.5 years and was just kind of, that was my trajectory. I was a sales team lead and then eventually wanted to become a general manager and then an area director, regional, the whole 9 yards. But then COVID hit and the fitness industry took a pretty heavy hit during all of that. And we were furloughed from our jobs immediately. I was unemployed for 7.5 months and I sent out exactly 972 applications.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
My husband and I, we had a goal of how many applications for jobs we would put in each day. That's how I know that number. And I only got 3 interviews out of all of those applications. And one of them happened to be for a leasing agent position. I had no idea what it was. I was kind of intimidated by it, to be honest with you, because it was like, that's a lot of legal stuff. And if you mess something up, that's kind of scary. I don't know if I want to do that. But as I had the interview, I realized like this is a lot of what I already do and what I enjoy doing, which is like connecting with people, the hospitality aspect. There's also a sales, aspect to it as well. So man, I really hope I get this job. And I was actually on the phone with a recruiter prepping for another interview when I was getting a phone call offering me the position of leasing agent. And I saw the voicemail coming through on my transcripts. I was like, I gotta go. I hung up on that recruiter and accepted the job. So that was August of 2020 that I started as a leasing agent, and then I've just worked my way up to being community manager.
Oh, I love that story. And I love the 972. That's absolutely fantastic. And thank you for being open and vulnerable about that. I know that's not the easiest thing to talk about, being furloughed during that time. But I know that so many people went through that. So thank you for sharing it. So you took that opportunity as a leasing consultant. So tell me how you've gotten to where you are today.
So I feel like working in multifamily, like my mindset is just a little bit different because my background is predominantly a sales background. So I don't really my job thinking like a property manager or thinking like a leasing agent. I'm thinking like a salesman. And I understand the psychology of sales and the importance of connecting with people, selling the problem you fix versus the product that you sell. And as I connect with people, I'm able to sell my product. And so I feel like that has aided in kind of my rapid growth. I mean, I literally went from leasing agent to property manager in 5 months, which I talked to a lot of people and it's like, oh, you skipped a lot of positions. I'm like, I didn't even know those positions were a thing, but here I am. I didn't know there was such a thing as a leasing manager or an assistant, but I just went from this lily pad to this giant lily pad. So but I think a lot of that is, again, I'm just not thinking in terms of multifamily and property management. I'm thinking in terms of sales. And in sales, you have to focus on connecting with people, focusing on the problem that you solve versus the product that you sell. And I feel like that's kind of given me quite the advantage within the trajectory of my career because my mindset is just very different than kind of what you see across the board.
Yeah, I absolutely love that you look at it that way. And you and I had a fantastic conversation leading up to being here today, where you discussed a lot about the psychology of the sale and really getting into the what is successful and what isn't and what you should focus on. I'd love it if you'd share a little bit more about that. Like what is the psychology of the sale to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's little things that play a role in getting the sale. One thing that's really big for me that I teach all of my teams within multifamily is, when a prospect comes in, don't just stay sitting behind your desk. I want you to grab your laptop or your iPad or whatever else. We have this gorgeous lobby. Go sit in it, go utilize it, because this desk right here, this is a psychological barrier between you and the prospect. You need to get rid of that. Now, you can't physically move the desk, but I want you to stand up and greet people, because I guarantee if all of us go secret shop some of our submarket, we're going to see no one is standing up to greet us. No one is getting out of the office and making us sit somewhere else. No one is grabbing us water or a coffee or things like that. That's the psychology of selling, because those little things go such a long way subconsciously to our prospects. And so removing those barriers, we're now sitting in this gorgeous lobby where there's no longer a barrier between us. But adding to that psychology of selling, if you're sitting in that lobby and you immediately cross your legs and fold your arms while you're talking to your prospect, you've just created another barrier. And the whole point of moving out to the lobby was to remove that barrier. So be mindful of what your body is doing and what you're communicating. I know what it means when I cross my arms and my legs. It probably means I'm pissed off and protecting myself and I'm on my guard. Our prospects come in and do the same thing, and they're going to mimic your behavior. So when we sit down, we open body language, have your laptop either on your lap or, the coffee table in front of you, but you need to mirror that, hey, you're okay. This isn't going to be a stressful situation, and I'm actually here to take care of you, contrary to what you think. And then you'll notice that all of a sudden their arms are no longer crossed in front of them and their legs are no longer crossed. And it's now just this open, inviting body language, which now they're open to connection. But that can't happen if you aren't hyper aware of those barriers to begin with.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I love that. So a huge part of the psychology of the sale for you is that physical connection. So like making sure that you are getting up, walking around the desk, pouring them a cup of coffee, like making sure that physically the body is like open and honest and inviting in that way.
Absolutely.
Do you have to train your team to be aware of that?
I do, because it's not something people think about. It's just not. We just focus on, you need to boost occupancy. Our pre-leasing percentage is so low, you guys. You need to pre-lease more. You need to follow up with your leads, because we're looking at our follow-up and the percentages are incredibly low. You guys need to follow up. And so, okay, I'm following up and I'm trying to get the occupancy up and I'm trying to get leases so we can boost our pre-leasing, but we're forgetting the most important piece that's going to help us get there. Your team is doing their follow-ups. They're sending applications like crazy, as far as follow-ups, they're sending 43 emails in a day and making 38 phone calls, but no applications are coming in.
Yep.
Why is that? And I made a post about this actually on LinkedIn a couple of days ago, where, we have ownership that comes to us really frustrated about these numbers. They're pre-leasing and their occupancy. And it's like, they talk to the regional and it's like, what's going on? And usually the advice is always, well, we need to increase your spend on marketing by X amount of dollars, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to increase what we're spending on apartments.com, Rentler, think of any internet lead source platform, right? But nothing's changing. Nothing is changing, yet the owner is spending an extra $1,000 a month for marketing, but marketing is not the problem. It's our teams don't understand those little psychological aspects, but that's because most of the time our people haven't worked in sales before. And that's something that a lot in sales. And I've also made a post about, I think it was actually that same post where I basically said, like, we need to train our leasing agents, our assistants, and our property managers to be salesmen, because that is exactly what they are. This is a sales industry. Trying to close on an application is getting a sale, and it's a long-term sale based on the lease term, right? And then it's another sale when they renew their lease. Mm-hmm. It's a sale when we get a new client as far as ownership is concerned. It's a sale when we get new property management software. It's a sale when we get new marketing. Everything is sales, but our teams are not being trained on having that mindset. And so every team I've ever had, I immediately go in and train them to be salesmen, not leasing agents.
Yeah.
It's just, that's their title, is leasing agent, but I train them on how to be a salesman. So then they are doing those little things. My first lease up, we hired someone new, and the first thing they said was, Catherine's not mean, but if you don't get up from your when a project comes in, she is not going to be happy.
I love that so much. I love it when people say things like, don't worry, I get that about me a lot too, where it's like, Kerri's not mean, but
But
Kerri's not difficult to work with, but
yeah, she doesn't have a really hard personality, but
yeah. Like, I think you're actually saying I do, but that's
yes,
okay.
that's fine. That's fine. I've worked really hard to master this, so it's fine.
Oh, I love it. Well, I have to say, I appreciate you jumping straight into this. And I really wanted to dig in really quickly because you really caught my eye. And the first conversation you and I had, I was just like, oh my gosh, like you're thinking about this really differently. And so, and I'm a huge fan of that. I'm a huge fan of kind of thinking outside of the box or being a little contrarian or really just having your own kind of different opinion than everyone else about this. And I love that you do. And it's not, your opinion isn't just, based in your experience, although your experience has been phenomenal and you bring a lot of that to the table in the sales aspect, but it's also a matter of fact. Like you've been able to prove a lot of this out, through training your team members and creating the leases and getting your numbers there. So I really appreciate you digging in and sharing all of that with us up front.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like your thoughts on this are really intriguing, and I love where your head's at. And I think we should think about it a lot more. So why do you think we don't? You said it, right? You've had these leasing teams, and every leasing team you've ever had, like you've had to train them to be sales team members because that's not how they focus. So what do they focus? Like, what are they coming to you as if not salespeople? And why do you think that the industry doesn't focus on that?
Yeah, I think it's because we just focus on property management. We manage properties, we manage leads, we manage vendors, right? And so it kind of comes with the terminology of the industry that we work in, which is property management.
Management, yeah.
And so we come in, and our leasing agents, we teach them how to manage leads, how to manage leases, how to manage future residents. And then property managers are trained on how to manage financials and how to manage vendors and things like that. And so, yes, our teams are so great on like the admin side of their jobs. They can scrub their financials like blindfolded, right? They can get invoices from a vendor without any issues whatsoever. But then this other side of the industry is suffering. The first property that I worked at as a leasing agent, again, I came in as a salesman. I don't understand property management. I don't know anything about this. I just know sales. Yeah. And I think I was probably 4 or 5 days in, and I heard my manager in her office go, "Holy crap." And I was like, "Is everything okay?" And she was like, "You got 4 applications today?" And it was like, "I know, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to get like 2 more. My goal is 6 today. I'm so sorry. I know it's only 4. I'm doing my best." Right. And she's like, "Katherine, we can't even get 4 applications in a month." And I was like, "Oh, you mean this is a good thing?" Yeah, I do that. So there you go.
That was me. Yeah. That's me.
I just continued working. But she was so great on the admin side of her job. That girl could do anything and everything you can possibly think of when it comes to the admin side of this job and managing a property. Yeah. But when it came to sales and understanding the importance of connection from maintenance, understanding how their role is actually sales, you have to close out work orders in a timely manner. Otherwise, you're screwing me out of a renewal in 6 months. That's sales, right? I talked about retaining a resident. Yep. That is a sales tactic. And you not closing out work orders actually hurts our closing ratio of maintaining residents. Our resident retention percentage significantly drops when you don't understand your role in that. But because our property managers aren't trained to be salesmen and think like salesmen, we just come in as simply people that know how to manage a property and financials and everything else that comes with that. Where I'm coming in like, yeah, all of this needs to be changed. All of it. Like the admin side is so vital, and I'm not going to discredit that in the slightest, because all of those things do have its purpose and its place. And just yesterday I was scrubbing financials yesterday. So I understand how important and valuable all of that stuff is. But that hamster wheel is going to continue of your pre-leasing numbers suffering, your occupancy suffering, resident retention suffering, when the on-site teams do not understand you are a salesman first and then a property manager, leasing agent, whatever second. That's just your title. But we've got to do a better job at training people how to be salesmen versus how to just manage assets.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my goodness. This is so great. So great. I have to have a moment of pretty extreme humility here. First of all, I love the way that you said, like, the problem is inherent in the name. Like, we call the industry property management, and everything is management. We're managing residents, we're managing applications, we're managing work orders. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Katherine, here's my moment of humility. Fortress, the software that my team and I built while we were running a property management company. Our left side nav of Fortress is literally titled with the headers of the sections that you go into, and I'm not freaking kidding you when I say this. Manage prospects, manage applications, manage renewals, manage rent roll, manage prior residents.
So we're going to be calling the team today to change that.
Yeah, we're calling the team today to change that.
It's too funny.
That is so funny. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Although I say all the time that, like, Fortress isn't your quote unquote sales tool, it's your management tool, right?
Correct. Yes.
That being said, though, like, there is a lot of value in, like, thinking about the tasks that we need to perform in property management as more customer service oriented and less like subject matter oriented. So, like, we're not managing things, we're providing a service. And so honestly, like, you have really made me think through that. And so I really appreciate it. Like, total humility here. Like, that is how we've been looking at it. And I completely see from your perspective why that isn't working well in the industry, especially as the industry has shifted. I've had a few guests on the podcast over the past few months who have said things to the effect of, 6 years ago, you essentially, if you could fog a mirror, you could lease a unit, right? But that is not the state of the industry today. Like, that's not the market today. We're struggling. Nashville's a really great example of a market that's been flooded with supply. And so now we're struggling to get the pro forma rents that we will ultimately come back to once, those 100 people a day that are moving into Nashville continue to relocate here and the supply is absorbed by the demand. We'll get back to those prices, but we're not there today because we've been flooded. And so leasing is a challenge. It's a battle. It's a sales process. And we need to, I think a large part of the problem in the industry is it has probably resulted from prior to your entrance into the industry, which is back when leases were so incredibly easy to secure because there wasn't enough supply. There just wasn't. And now we have a lot of supply. And so we're trying to figure that out. But man, moment of humility there. So I appreciate you throwing that up in my face for me.
Yeah. Happy to.
Yeah, the team's getting a call after this one.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd love to go back a little bit to your kind of focus on the psychology of people. So we talked a little bit about breaking down the physical barriers, but you and I have discussed a lot about creating that kind of that culture of I'm trying to find the word, remember the word that we discussed. But connection, that's the word. You kept using the word connection over and over again when you and I were discussing before. And there was like an element of this emotional and psychological connection that you create between people. And I remember my first gig in sales now. Which is, I don't know who in the heck thought I should have been in sales at that time. I was an accountant and went to law school and then actually wanted to go back into accounting for a little bit after having my first son. And didn't didn't really know where to go. My husband and I had relocated to Nashville, and I didn't know anybody here. And so I actually went to what was then a Fortune 500 staffing company. And I was like, hey, I just want maybe like a part-time job in accounting for a little while. I just had my first son, like not really looking to get into the rat race of a legal firm right now, of a law firm. So just looking for something like kind of part-time in an accounting office. And they offered me a position with them at that recruiting company. So I ended up spending a year and a half in sales, like, actively trying to sell to both candidates, trying to recruit them to come on board with us, and then trying to, of course, work with companies who were hiring and sell our services of filling those positions. And holy shit, it was so hard. It was just that is not my domain. I am not naturally gifted at sales, and it drained me, and I tried so hard to be good at it, and it was really, really tough. So I have so much respect for the people who have, like yourself, who have really figured it out and have really figured out that psychology of connection. And I think that it's such an incredible topic and such an important thing to talk about. I mean, I say all the time, I really hope one of the first jobs my son, who's now 13, gets when he is ready to work, which is in sales. Like, I really hope he goes into sales, because I think it teaches you so much about life, and a huge part of that is through the connection. So I'd love for you to talk about that. Like, what does connection mean to you, and what role does that play in sales?
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that, will do a sales job and realize this is not for me. This is like not my wheelhouse. I do not have the personality for this at all. And I think sales used to be kind of what you envision when you almost hear the word, which is a door-to-door salesman coming to sell you pest control or a Kirby vacuum. I don't even know if those people still exist, but or your solar panels or whatever, right? Your car salesman. And that's a different kind of sales, right? Where you're being overly pushy and really not even trying to connect with the person. You're really just trying to get your sales for the day. And that's a type of sales that I absolutely can't stand. But as long as people are taught how to connect with people, they can sell.
Yeah.
So instead of teaching people, you got to sell more, it's you need to connect better. You need to connect with that person better. When I worked at Coach, I was a senior sales admin for them. And something that Coach required was you had to gather the 3 Ps after a prospect, which is what product were they looking at? What was their price point? Tell me something personal about them. And after each engagement on the sales floor, we would ask, what product were they looking at? What was their price point? And what's something you personally learned about them? And it was kind of wild how oftentimes it was like, I don't know, to all 3 of those questions. And it was like, so why are you mad that they're across the mall right now in Michael Kors? Because I'm not understanding why you're upset.
Yeah.
Like, Michael Kors actually deserves that sale more than we do right now.
Yeah.
And so as far as like the emotional connection, to me, connection is about our people being seen, valued, and heard. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. And when people are coming to us apartment shopping, we don't know if we're the first on their list or the 6th on their list, but if anyone has ever gone house hunting or apartment shopping, it makes you almost want to blow your brains out, because it's just every apartment starts to look the same. They all start to bleed together. And it's like, what one did we look at? I don't even remember. I didn't take any pictures of that one. I really don't want to go back and look at it. Can we just pick one and apply for one? Because I'm so irritated at this point.
Yeah.
But the way you're going to stand out of the obscene amount of options that are out there is by building that connection with people. So if you can see that someone is clearly exhausted or stressed out, whatever else, a simple gesture of offering them some water or a cup of coffee goes a long way. A simple gesture of sitting down with them and saying, so how's apartment shopping going? You look pretty exhausted, right? Like, just shoot straight with these people, right? Yeah. People want to feel like they're connected to a human and not just a leasing agent, right? I actually went and secret shopped a property last week, and I walked in and I was like, hi, I'm wondering if I can have a tour. And he was like, sure. And then he just started fixing papers on his desk. And I'm like, should I sit down? Should I stand here like an idiot? Like, what's happening, dude? And he finally was like, you can take a seat. And he acted so irritated, like I didn't know I should have sat down, type of thing. And of course, I'm thinking in terms of the psychology of sales. I was like, that was a red flag. That was a red flag. Your desk is a mess. That was a red flag. Like there were so many little things. He's like, what are you looking for? And I was like, 2 or 3 bedroom. He's like, okay, cool. When do you want to move? I was like, before the holiday, probably in the next like 30 days or so. He's like, cool. So he types on his computer, turns his screen and points to it. He's like, that's what I have available. Does that work for you? I'm like, dude, why am I looking for a 2 or 3 bedroom?
Yeah.
I'm here by myself. 2 to 3 bedrooms sounds like a lot of square footage for one person. So why do I need that large of a floor plan? Why didn't you ask me to sit down? Why didn't you ask me what's making me move? Right? I could be going through a divorce right now and you wouldn't know that. And I could be turning into a single mom. And that's why I need a 2 to a 3 bedroom, because it's going to be me and my daughter. Right. Or maybe my husband just lost his job and we need to downsize to an apartment from a townhome. Right. Or maybe we are moving from out of state and I don't know the first thing about Salt Lake City or the first thing about Utah. You are supposed to make me feel comfortable with that. And right now, you're not my top choice. And the little things that matter. I remember when I worked for Vasa Fitness, because I've been doing this such a long time, trying to connect with people. And there was a girl that came in wanting to get a membership, and I just started talking to her, like, so do you go to work? Do you go to school? Like, tell me a little bit about you. And she was just like, yeah, I work. I was like, okay, what do you do for work? And she was just so irritated with every single question that I was asking. And she was like, I'm sorry, I don't understand what this has to do with the gym membership. And that just pissed me off so much. I have quite the attitude on me. So I was like, I'm sorry. I was just trying to get to know you just a little bit more. I'm sorry I was being personal with you. Let's just get down to business. So I just started typing on my computer, and that girl was so uncomfortable that I basically called her out for kind of how bratty she was being. And I was like, what membership do you want? Do you want the $10? Do you want the 20? Do you want the 50? Which one do you want? And she was and she started apologizing, where she's like, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I was like, it's fine, but you don't need to. I was just simply trying to get to know you, because I know how intimidating the gym is. I know how intimidating that giant space back there is. And I'm doing everything I can to break that ice for you. But if you don't want to talk to me, get to know me, and me get to know you, that's fine. And this can just be a business transaction. We don't have to go any further than that. And so with multifamily, I think our job is, this is intimidating. I don't know why this person is looking for an apartment, but it's my job to find out.
Yeah.
We need to stop these people as, oh, you're going to boost my occupancy percentage, which means I'm going to get this huge freaking bonus. And then I'm going to get that promotion. And then ownership is going to be so happy with me. So will you hurry and do an application, because we need to wrap this up, because I've got like 5 tours behind you. Right. Where instead, take your time with these people and get to know them. And people are going to remember the experience they had with you more than the product you are trying to sell them. Salt Lake City is going through the same thing with Nashville, where there is so much delivery. We have tons of people moving here, right? So why aren't the leases just popping off like crazy, right? It's because there's so much more option and availability for these people than there were 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And that wasn't that long ago, right? We're not talking 15, 20 years ago. I'm talking less than 5 years ago, Salt Lake City. So these people have a lot more options than they have before. And if I really want them to choose me over the newest, the latest, and the greatest, I have to focus on building a connection with that person first. And it starts with just simply asking, what's making you move, and what are you looking for? And making sure you're actually listening to these people. There's a difference between listening with understanding and having a conversation versus listening long enough so that you can say something. That's not really listening to the person. So when a person says, oh, we're moving from out of state, or we're getting married, or we're about to have a baby, I'm going through divorce, whatever, put a pause on the leasing experience and talk to the person about what they just said to you. Congratulations on the baby. That's so exciting. Is this your first? I have one too. And man, that first year, I am with you. Like, being a new parent is the most rewarding but most exhausting thing in the world. And this home is going to be so special for you, because it's going to be the home you bring your baby to. And I'm so excited for you. Acknowledge the fact that they just told you they're going through a divorce. I am so sorry. That is so stinking hard. That is like a complete life change. And I'm sorry you're having to go through that. Let's find a home that works for you and makes you feel like you're starting over right on the right foot. And I think we get scared of doing the connection aspect in our industry because we're terrified of fair housing laws. We're terrified of
Hmm.
connecting with people because what if I breach fair housing? What if someone thinks it's being discriminatory with what I'm asking? What if someone thinks I'm harassing them with this question? What if? Because fair housing is such a big thing in our industry, and we have to be so
Yeah.
mindful of it that I think we get almost too mindful of it, that we fail to connect with the individual because we are so hyper freaked out that, well, what if I say something, ask something, and they take it this way? So there is a way to train our teams to connect with people without making them feel like they're in breach of fair housing laws.
Oh, that's so interesting. I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective, but I do understand what you're saying. That makes a lot of sense. I'm actually not a huge quote person, but what you were saying and how you were describing all of this, back from when you were talking about your experience as a sales leader at Coach, to making sure that people feel seen, valued, and heard. It just really reminds me of one of the only quotes that I actually quote, but it's attributed to Maya Angelou, and it's that people won't remember what you said and people won't remember what you
Mm-hmm.
did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And
100%.
right. And I say all the time, like, if I had to move into an apartment home for any reason, if my husband lost his job, or if, we needed to downsize, or whatever that was, if I had to move, my number one priority would be location because of because of where my boys go to school. But second would
Yeah.
be how I felt. That's it. Like, how the
100%.
community made me feel. And I do agree with you. Like, at the end of the day, a home is, a physical location with four walls and some sort of a roof over your head. And
Mm-hmm.
they're not that different from location to location, but you can really make a huge impact on how someone feels by how you're training your team to engage when they walk in that door.
Mm-hmm.
And your story of the shop that you went on, this is so good. I'd love to just ask you to just call out the property right here, right now.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
team deserves to know.
Right,
but
exactly.
but that's such a great example, and of a community and a team that's not prioritizing that, which is making sure that people feel really good when they're in your community.
Yeah. And I think, as we start changing our verbiage within the industry of, it's a community versus a property, it's a home versus a unit.
Yeah.
It's a future resident versus a prospect, right? And,
Yeah.
oftentimes we see that verbiage being used on tours, and it's like, these people aren't moving to a freaking property. Stop saying that. They're moving to a community, right? And as you
Yeah.
use that type of verbiage, you're showing that, hey, we actually try to build that here at this property. Well, I mean, we don't say property, but we're trying to build that here at this community, is build a sense of community by doing our resident events. When you're on a tour, say hi to the resident that's walking down the hallway, so it feels like a sense of community, that, like, oh wow, they knew who that person was. That's kind of cool. This place looks huge, and I can't believe they actually knew who that was, right? Make sure you're training your maintenance team to say hi to tours when you guys are walking through. You're more than likely going to see them when they're doing grounds or something to that effect. Make sure they're saying hi. That stuff goes such a long way versus like, oh, it's just another tour. It's just another prospect, right? Like, I've checked my email on that place that I went and visited. Like, I haven't received a follow-up email. I haven't received like a thank you so much for coming and touring with us. How's your apartment shopping going? How's your new home search going? But at the same time, even if I was receiving those emails, I probably wouldn't be responding to them because of what my initial experience was. You didn't seem to care why I was moving and what I was looking for. Like, so why would I respond to even your follow-up email of, do you want to do the application? Do you want to move in? No, I really don't. But thank you so much. People will pick a place that maybe the square footage of the apartment is a lot smaller than they were originally wanting. They
Yeah.
will pick a community
Yep.
that they
Yes.
probably parking is really limited. They'll probably pick a community where it's like, oh, this isn't like the location I really, really wanted. But this manager, this leasing agent, do you remember when we were on the tour and the maintenance supervisor like stopped on his golf cart to talk to us for a second? I really want to live there because that just like felt so homey to me. Again, the apartment is smaller than I want. Don't love the location. I don't know where we're going to park your truck or whatever. But that place really felt like home, and that place really stood out. You don't want to stand out for bad reasons, folks. You want to stand out for like just batting 1,000 every single time. And that is why people will choose you. It is not your square footage. It is not your landscaping. It is not your amenities.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love this. And I have to say, you and I don't know each other very well. In fact, we've just met within the past month or so. So you don't know this about me, but I'm a little bit granola in my own way. Like I meditate every morning. I'm like big on like healthy mental practices. I read a lot about like the psychology and evolution of humanity. And so anyway, I'm big into all that. Well, one of my engineers at my tech company, one of my developers engineers recommended a book to me about a year ago, and I finally got around to reading it. My book list is like massive, but I finally got around to reading it a couple of months ago. But it's a book called Levels of Energy by Frederick Dodson. It's an interesting book. It's a little, like I said, I'm a little granola, so it's a little out there. But it is, and I will own it. It's a little out there, but it's a really interesting book that talks about how like areas, like even like states and cities and specific attractions and restaurants, and anyway, everywhere you go and every human you act with has a specific level of energy. In fact, everything has a level of energy. But what I love about what you're describing and what's making me think about that book so much is that you're talking about like elevating the entire energy level of the community, right? Because you're saying the maintenance technician should absolutely not pass by us without a smile and a kind word, like saying hello to the prospect, that the leasing assistant, when they are, or leasing specialist, when they're out there providing the tour, they should say hi to everyone that's there. And anyway, you're creating this whole different feeling, level of energy about your community that's different from every other. And I think that when you do that, like you really do create a space where you're the memorable one, because that person felt better being in your community than they did anywhere else. And that's that's where the magic is in the sales process.
It totally is. And you don't have to be someone who's into, energy work, the homeopathic stuff. It's actually super funny. I was listening to an energy podcast this morning about how there's kind of like a shift happening right now, and people are focusing on how they want connection more. So it's kind of wild that I listened to that podcast this morning.
Yes.
And now we're actually talking about that because you're in good company. I'm into that stuff as well. So when my husband listens to this podcast, he's going to die when he hears all of this. So
fun. So fun.
But you don't have to be someone that like necessarily understands energy work, how any of that stuff works. You don't have to be someone who's like super granola and homeopathic to sit there and either like or dislike someone's energy that they give off, right? Like we can all have a bad date that we went on. Why? Well, their energy was just this, and this. And man, the day just had this vibe and I didn't like that. There's companies maybe some of us have worked for, didn't have the best energy, didn't like this vibe, didn't like this, didn't like that. You don't have to believe and like truly understand that stuff to sit back and say, didn't like the energy, didn't like the vibe. But I loved the energy, but I loved the vibe. And that is what, at this point, like with the time that we live in and society that we live in, people are focusing more on the feelings that it gives them versus what they're necessarily going to tangibly get out of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's all about the feeling that they're experiencing. Well, before we wrap up, as you know, we just have one question that I'd love to ask you, as I ask all of our guests as we wrap up the show, because I think property management is full of stories. And we've heard, gosh, I think we've had like 14 or 15 episodes so far. And so far we've had that many stories, and they are, some are funny, some are really emotionally, kind of pulling and because of the good that's been done. Some are super scandalous. So we've run the gamut of the property management stories. So I'd love for you to share one.
I'll probably have to share one that I have not had anything like trump this one, and it's actually kind of a funny one. It was at my first lease up, and we were running into a lot of like water issues. Like people would turn on the cold water and it would be hot, and people would turn on the hot water and it would be cold. Like it's construction. Like that is so freaking standard. It'd be so nice if a new build was like perfect, but it's actually the polar opposite sometimes. And we had an apartment we were working in that was having some issues, and above the front door was like this hatch, and when you opened it, the water supply lines were there for the hot line and the cold water line, and we had to do some work further down the water line, so we had to cut a hole above her cabinets and her kitchen. And they had been working on it all day. Everything was done. The subcontractor came and they were able to mud it, patch it, good to go. So we're leaving the office for the day, and we have a resident come down just shaking and trying so hard to hold back her tears. And we're like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And she's like, my cat is missing. My cat is gone. And we just kind of look at each other like, the day's over. I don't want to deal with a missing cat. What do we do? And she was like, they were working in my apartment today, and I don't know if they like left the door open, but my cat is gone. And we're like, God damn it. Maybe the door did get left open. That cat could be anywhere in the hall. She's like, no, there's another place the cat could be. And I was like, where? And she was like, oh, they had a hole cut open in my ceiling. And I was like, don't finish your sentence. Please do not finish your sentence.
Oh
Like,
no.
they patched it, but I have a feeling when they had the hole open and they were getting ready to patch it, that my cat jumped up onto the cabinets and climbed in there. And so my first thought is like, okay, this woman lives on the 5th floor, and if that cat is in this goddamn ceiling, he can be anywhere on the 5th floor.
Oh,
Like, there's no freaking way. And my leasing agents and everyone's looking at me like, what are you going to do? I was like, you guys go home. I got to call Tom, supervisor at the time. So I call him. I was like, where are you? And he was so far away, bless his heart. He was pretty much home. I was like, this is the situation. And the silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. It's like, what are you telling me? I was like, I am telling you that a cat has probably been sheetrocked into the freaking ceiling. And I was like, I am so panicked that this effing cat is like anywhere on the 5th floor. He was like, hold on. The cat will only be above her apartment, which is great because there's actually,
Oh.
yes, there's actually, I don't remember what it's called, but there's actually like barriers in, I guess you could say like the attic, right? Like above the
Yeah.
where it's like, it is, that cat is somewhere above her unit. The cat cannot go anywhere else. I was like, so we're just going to be cutting holes across her entire ceiling. Looking, I think that's what you're telling me. And he was like, I'm on my way, but call Scott. And Scott was the assistant project for Big D Construction at the time. So I call him and I was like, hey man, sorry to call you after hours, but, and I explained the situation. Like, Katherine, I was literally just about to take a sip of my whiskey before you called. So let me take a sip first before I come to your property. And so it's like, what do I do? Like, I don't even know where to begin. And they were like, that hatch that's above the front door, open that, go get, one of those A-frame ladders and see if you can see the cat in there, because we have to know if this cat is in there.
Oh
And so
my gosh.
climbs up, I climb up, I can't see anything. So she gets some catnip and like puts it on her hands and puts her hand up there, and then she feels this cold little nose, and sure enough, the cat is up there. And she tries to grab him, but that thing took a beeline, and we were inside her apartment for probably an hour trying to figure out how to get the cat down, because the cat wouldn't come down. And so then we had to cut into this brand new hole that had just been patched, right? We had to cut a brand new hole into that, see if we could grab it. And that cat, like, I'm sorry, knew damn well what it was doing. It stood right in the middle of the 2 holes. It wouldn't come to this one and it wouldn't come to that one. I think it was pushing 2 hours, where it was like, do you want us to stay here until the cat comes down? She was like, no, the cat will eventually come down. Thank you so much. If we can please leave these holes open, that would be great. And then I think 5:30 the next morning, the cat finally came down out of the ceiling. But that's one of my most wild property management stories so far, is a cat sheetrocked into the ceiling. So that's real life. That really happened. I have plenty of other stories, but so far I haven't had anything really like leave me completely gobsmacked like that one.
That is a phenomenal story. I have to say,
my phone, where we put our phones up and just took a picture of the cat, and sure enough, there he was.
Oh, that is a fantastic story. And it really cracks me up too, because my team, so we use Slack, and we have a lot of these like Slack bot things set up. So if someone says something about cats, then it gets a response. And if somebody says something about dogs, it responds back and says dogs are the best. But if someone mentions a cat in our Slack, there's an automatic Slack response that says, ew, cats.
Yes.
We have this debate going on.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. And so far, like that whole experience just proved to me, cats are not the best, man. I'll tell you that. A dog would never do that.
Oh, too funny. I'm not here to talk smack about cats. I know people love their cats, but it is really funny. Sheetrocked cat into a wall or into a ceiling. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Katherine, thank you so much for sharing that with us today. But mostly, thank you for sharing your experience and your expert thoughts on the property management industry and the fact that we focus on managing versus selling.
Yes, versus connecting. Yeah.
Yes, versus connecting. And the psychology of the sale. It was all just really, really incredible. I really appreciate your advice, your time. So thank you so much for being here. This is a great conversation.
You're welcome. Anytime. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, Katherine. Bye.